Everybody, I'm back. Despite there being a complete and total internet outage on my area for over half a day, despite the freezing cold temperatures outside, and the fact that it is Christmas Eve for those of you that celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas to all of you, I am still here. Your bookman from Rockasite is here because I said we were going to start CSS 3, and we are going to start CSS 3 today. So, let's begin quick. CSS, what does CSS stand for? It stands for Cascading Style Sheet. What CSS is, it's a means to turn what we have, which is, let's get this up. We'll go with, what did I call this again? I called it, index. It's how we turn this to something like this, or something like, let's go back to YouTube. If it works, let's cross our fingers. But it takes this and turns it to this. It's styling. It gives you different looks, different borders, different colors, different lines, all this stuff that you see here. This is all CSS, everything here, everything here. If you took out the CSS, and if we inspect, if you took out the CSS, then everything here would look a lot like here. I mean, it wouldn't be set up like this because we don't have thumbnails, videos, and stuff like that. That's nice. But everything here would more or less look the same as this. So you need CSS. Now, typically what they'll do on these big sites is you see this script. Well, that's something different. Script. Where is it? Where are you? Come on, you know you want to show yourself. Style. See style? They'll put it in the actual coding and in the head. And there are three ways that you can open up a style sheet or styling properties. One of the ways is, as I just showed you, here in the head you can do style, open up a style bracket, close the style bracket, and then in here you can do all your CSS. Or you can do what's called inline CSS, which is in here you would say style equals, and then within here you would put all your CSS. We're not doing that, okay? We're not doing inline styling. We're not doing in-head styling, not at all. We made a CSS folder. Now, if you want to see what that looks like, we can go to CSS 3, and we can go to this. Again, we've got to cross our fingers because my internet is still not up and running completely. It's still kind of on and off, up and down, left and right. But certain things will show you how to do inline and everything. I don't do inline. I do folders. This is why we created this CSS tag. For the sole purpose of getting started, again, I want to show you things before we actually get into how we're going to go about putting it all together. But just to show you how we are going to incorporate our CSS, we're going to incorporate with a link tag in the head area, because again, this is our reference area. Typically everything in here is just reference. We don't want to show it anywhere on the page. And we go link rel, which means something, relation, relativity, equals style sheet. And then the href will be in CSS, and we're going to make one, we're going to call this one here, we'll just call like what I usually call main CSS. For practice though, let's get rid of this, let's practice first. This is the page we're making, this is what we're doing. Let's make a folder in here, and we'll call it CSS practice. And then within here, because I want it to be, I don't want to kind of go out of the format. I want everything to be in the same general construction. And we'll go practice.css. Okay, we'll do that. Now let's go to Haya. Let's go over here and we'll go practice, Haya. This is not affected by the internet because we're basing this off of our folders, our own personal folders. The internet can get, especially now, your computer is basically online all the time anyway. You don't have to worry about having the internet accessible when you're, if you want to post these videos, yeah. So we have higher now. Let's go, as I said, let's go in here and let's go link rel equals style sheet. So you tell it what it is. href equals, I think I could, yeah, we can just go like this, CSS practice, that's easy. And from there, since we're referencing the folders within, I may have to, no, I think we're okay. From there, in the practice.css, what we can do is, well, let's get started with the simple stuff, okay? With styles sheets in CSS, the way that you reference things is you reference them with whatever it is here that you have that you want to style. So we can say something like header. We can just reference header. And from there, we can do whatever we want within these brackets. The way cascading style sheets work is it starts from the top and then it reads down. So the server will read everything that you put from here on down. It'll just keep styling everything based on what you put here. Now, if you put in something wrong, like duh, and you put in it's not gonna, and you don't put it, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to give you an error message, and you know nothing's going to change. But if you do something correct, like let's say header, we want to just kind of give it like a background color or something like that. I want to sort of explain it as I do it. Let's think of something simple. Okay, so let's start with the fonts themselves, right? If we wanted to do something with the header fonts, if you type in font on something like this, as you can see, there are a whole bunch of ways that you can style the fonts. Font size, font weight, font family, font style, display, blah, 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 blah. Font stretch, font synthesis. There are all these different ways that you can style the fonts. So for us, we'll go font family. And if you look, you have all bunches of font families and everything that you could put in there. Now, if you wanted to look up fonts, we can go to Google Fonts if you'd want. But if you want to look up just fonts in general, you could see all these different fonts. If you wanted to go do fonts in HTML, you could see all the different fonts that automatically come in CSS and HTML. And we'll take a look at the different fonts that we have. We have, let's see, serif, sans serif, monospace, cursive, fantasy. These are all the ones that you can actually use straight out of the box. Helvetica, this is what they look like. Automatically, it comes out at Times New Roman. This is called Times New Roman. If you wanted to change that to, say, Arial, and this is a good way to make sure that this is actually working. Let me see. If you don't see a change, the best way is to go to the link itself. This is a right-click inspect. Go to the link itself and click on this, open a new tab. If you see it can't be accessed, then we forgot to put in a folder. So I was right and wrong at the same time. Let's put in, oh yeah, because it's CSS practice. Okay. Now let's see if that's still, it could be accessed. So we have to put in, let's see, HTML practice. Got to put in a whole. Maybe we don't have to put in this. Let's double check. There we go. As you can see, it changed. Right? We finally got the folder right, so it changed the font here. You can do Arial, and then you can put in other ones. Anytime you want to have a bunch of different rules for one specific set or different exceptions to one rule, you use commas. So you could say that, you could say Courier New, or Courier is the actual font itself. All that means is if your server doesn't have Arial, you can use Courier New. Now every server has Arial, Courier, and everything. Let's go with one that we don't have. Let's say you want to get, let's say, one of my favorites, AR Berkeley, right? And as you can see, I'm typing it just straight up. That doesn't make any sense. And then I put Arial, and we'll do Helvetica, Sunset, we'll do the rest of those, right? AR Berkeley is not going to be recognized. So if we refresh, it's going to stay Arial because we separated with a comma and it did not recognize AR Berkeley. We're going to get rid of that. And one thing you have to note is, whenever you put in a rule, like if we put in another rule, we say header itself, we want the header itself to be, to have a margin bottom of 10 pixels. What you do is you open up what you want to change, you put in some brackets, open up brackets, and then you type in what it is you're focusing on, colon, so that the CSS knows, okay, I'm looking at the code font family, colon, and then I'm looking at what font family I'm going to change. Then you separate it with a semicolon. If you forget the colon, it screws everything up. If you forget the semicolon, you'll get the first change probably, but everything else, it won't do anything. So you have to make sure that you put the colons in. And the reason why you don't get error messages is it's coding, it's just text editing, it's not actual programming. So there's no compiling, it's just going to not work. So we put margin bottom 10 and everything like that, you're not going to see much of a change. And one of the reasons why is we haven't differentiated anything yet. Now I want to show you something before we get into that. If you look here, right, this right here is a display of what we're doing. Let's go to the header. Let's click on the header, right? One of the good things about Google Chrome is that you can do this almost, and I think every single web service does this, every browser does this. I could be wrong, but Google Chrome has this kind of element thing, and it's really beneficial for when you get into deeper things. HTML is just HTML. If you don't know HTML, you might want to stop and watch the HTML series because it's not difficult per se, but stuff like CSS and JavaScript and everything else, you kind of need this in some instances because, especially with JavaScript, when we get to that, you're not going to see any error messages. You're just going to see things not working and it's going to drive you nuts. But I want to show you this. This right here is a display. This is a model of what exactly every single thing that we wrap in these tags becomes. What it looks like, in the browser. You have the element itself, which is the header, and then within the header, you have padding. So if we were to do, let's do a difference between, let's do padding 5 pixels. Let's go margin, let's say margin bottom, and let's put something significant. Let's say 50 pixels, right? Now it moved because we said margin bottom 50 pixels. And if you've noticed this, if I take that out, if I say padding 0, this moved. All of it moved. Margins push the element, the header itself in this case. Margins are kind of, let's take the header as it is here. Margins will kind of take everything outside what you just referenced in the CSS and push it down like that, right? Padding will take everything within it and kind of give it the space that you asked for. Sorry, wait, hold on, not like that. So padding is within the element that we referenced. Within the header element, padding is inside. So if I say padding 15 pixels, the padding is inside. Which means that it'll look like this moved, and it did, but what's inside also moved. If I take the padding out and make that margin bottom, well, I mean, you're not really going to see a difference if I just say margin, but margin bottom, for instance. See, it's not what's inside hasn't moved. It's gone back to its original state. But everything below it, if we say bottom, has moved. If we say margin left, that moves, but this doesn't. So again, margins, and it would look, again, it would look the same. I would want to show, I got to show you borders and stuff. It would look the same with just nothing there, but I want you to understand how padding and margins work. Now, if I were to say, put a border on it, 1 pick solid black, let's just say, all right? Let's put a border on it so we know. Now, we don't have any discernible, oh, solid, not sold, solid. And I'll get into these different things later. We don't have any discernible size, so it's going to just stick the whole area. Now, let's do margin left, as you see, 15 pixels. Now, if we say padding left, then you can do padding left, you can do margin left, you can do whatever those two have in store for you, or just in general. If you notice, this didn't move, but that did. See? Margin left. That moved over, this didn't. Padding left. This moved, that didn't. That starts on the extreme left, and this didn't move. Border, that's outside, that's around it. Margin is outside it. Padding is within it. Now, we also have a nav here. If I were to get rid of the padding left and whatever for the header, and I were to say nav, and I were to say margin left, now we're not, oh, sorry, 50 pixels. Now we're not referencing the header. The header will not move, but this will, because we're talking about the nav within the header, and the nav within the header also has its elements of, or its distinguishable features of padding, border. Now, to show the difference, if I were to say border right, border right, 2 pixels, solid red. See here? That is the nav border. But how do you distinguish between? I go margin right, 50 pixels. And now you see it's moved. But if I were to say header, margin right, 50 pixels. See, now that moved. So that's just the concept of, and the reason why I'm showing this first is not so you get to learn borders and margins first, but because I want you to see that every time you put any of these tags around something, you're creating a box. And that box, every single box, is formatted in this manner. The actual element itself, the padding within it, the border around it, and the margin outside of it. So remember that, because we're going to be doing that, and I'll show you what happens when you don't take that in consideration and what happens when you do take that in consideration. This is just the starting point of CSS. We're going to go into more detailed things when I return in just a sec.